My name is Daniel Branco. I'm a neurologist and neuroscientist, and I've spent a lifetime pursuing a deeper understanding of consciousness. And this is a conversation about high consciousness. I've been promising in other videos to explain what high consciousness means. But before we get there, we need to take one essential step back. Before we can talk about high consciousness, we must first understand what consciousness is in the first place, at least as the term is used in this podcast, regardless of whether it's high or low. To be concise, I'll start with a short but admittedly vague definition. Consciousness is indeterminacy with meaning. Let me repeat that. And it's okay if it doesn't make sense yet. But consciousness is indeterminacy with meaning. By the end of this video, that phrase will make much more sense. A good place for us to start this conversation begins with computers. Before computers existed, some thinkers used to compare the brain to systems, since pipes and valves were the best analogy they had for circuits and flow, including information flow. With the rise of electronics and computing, computers then became a closer metaphor for the brain and for how we understand and make sense of the brain. Computers have processors that handle information and memory, just as supposedly our brains do. And I say supposedly because neuroscience assumes our memories are stored in the brain. And while that's probably true, I suspect there's more to the story. But that's something for another video. Today, we have an even closer analogy to the brain, which is artificial intelligence. And that's no coincidence. After all, neural networks were inspired by the structure of biological neurons. That's why large language models like ChatGPT feel so human. But let's stick with our classical computers metaphor for now, because even AI, as of late 2025, when I'm recording this video, it still runs on classical computers. That means AI systems still follow the same fundamental principles as classical computing. And perhaps the most important characteristic of a classical computer, when we use a classical computer as a metaphor for the brain, is that classical computer is deterministic. A deterministic machine operates according to fixed, predictable rules. And if we know its state, what's going inside it, we can know exactly what it will do next and what result it will produce. No surprises, no randomness. That's the fundamental definition of a deterministic machine. But then you might think, "But Daniel, computers do generate random numbers." And I'd say yes, but those numbers aren't truly random. They're pseudo-random numbers produced by deterministic algorithms that only simulate randomness. Eventually, the sequence repeats. So whenever you use the random function on an Excel spreadsheet, for example, that number isn't truly random. It didn't come from thin air. There is a deterministic algorithm generating that number. So, because of that, classical computers are, by nature, deterministic, deterministic systems. Quantum computers, on the other hand, can generate truly random numbers. They are non-deterministic, but that's a topic for another video on random computer or on quantum computers. So what about AI? Models like ChatGPT, which sound remarkably human, still run on classical hardware. Therefore, they are deterministic too. They're just so complex that in practice, we cannot predict their exact outputs. But that doesn't make them random. It just makes them statistically intricate. They simulate unpredictability so convincingly that we sometimes mistake it for magic. It's like uh, AI is a magical thing, but it's not magic. It's just staggering complexity. Now, what about the brain? Is the brain deterministic or non-deterministic? And the truth is that we don't fully know. Neuronal activity looks very much deterministic in many ways, but we also know that quantum phenomena exist in biology. For example, some birds seem to sense magnetic fields using quantum processes. If quantum effects happen in birds, it's only reasonable to imagine they might be occurring in humans too. I would bet that at some level, our brains do have some quantum properties as well. That's actually a proposal, a theory proposed by Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff. But how does this actually help us understand consciousness? Because consciousness involves many features like self awareness, continuity over time, integration of multiple sensory systems into one coherent experience. All of that, all of those elements are attributes of consciousness. Yet no one really knows what consciousness is. Some scientists even argue that it doesn't exist at all. Like, never mind. Never mind your conscious experience. It's just an illusion of sorts. But one of the most striking things about consciousness is that it has intention, aims, it wants, it chooses. Many spiritual traditions interpret this intention as free will, implying it's not something pre programmed by the brain. Most neuroscientists, however, reject the idea of free will, arguing that if the brain operates deterministically, then there's really nothing truly free about it. But if the brain has a quantum nature, does that mean it could have free will? And still, that's not necessarily the case because quantum means random, not free. And randomness isn't the same as intention. Quantum computer would have random will, not free will. Mhm. Humans, however, have purposeful will. That will that humans have, that's neither predictable nor random. We see an ad on TV and feel desire. That's not freedom, but it's also not randomness. We like to believe our will is more than brain mechanics. We see something transcendent. We see ourselves as conscious beings, not deterministic, not probabilistic, not mechanistic. The rise of AI has made this distinction even clearer. We've realized there is a machine inside our heads, a built in language model that lets us communicate, pretty much like an AI does. When a child misbehaves, she already knows what her mother will say. The mother's internal model is predictable. We see that we too operate mechanically at times. And yet, we are also conscious. We feel. And that is something neither classical physics nor quantum randomness can explain. We are beings of will. AI, as far as we know, doesn't have will, or at least that's what science says. There's no really good scientific reason for AI to have will. Actually, from a scientific perspective, there's no even reason for human beings to have will. So computers don't have will. But I make the case here that we as humans very much do so. We do have will. And we feel that will. Because feeling is something no machine can replicate, at least as far as we can tell or measure. There's no way to find out if a machine has feelings. Just as there's no way to find out if a human has feelings. We just believe them to have because we do have them, so we can relate. But there's no way, scientific way to prove that. And not long ago, humanity didn't believe animals were conscious. Today, few people would deny that dog, for example, has feelings. Perhaps one day we will wonder whether AI feels too. Actually, many people these days are wondering that exact thing. But scientifically, we have no way to prove consciousness, not in machines, not even in ourselves. Our only evidence is direct experience. It's the undeniable experience of being a conscious being. We also know that intention shapes the physical world. If you want and decide to build a house, you go out and build it in brick and stone. That means consciousness acts upon matter. Machines can't do that on their own. They have to be told what to do, they have to be programmed. Otherwise, they don't have inherent will and intention. So, what is consciousness after all? Well, consciousness, at least for the purposes of this podcast, consciousness is that which impresses will upon matter. It acts upon the physical world. It's indeterministic. It doesn't follow a fixed deterministic program, even if the brain does. And even if many of our behaviors are program like, that doesn't mean that our consciousness is like that. Because programs can be programmed into a machine. And consciousness, we have no clue. We don't know. We don't know if it can be programmed into a machine. Consciousness is not about programming. Consciousness is about living and experiencing the program. Consciousness has will, and that will is meaningful. Machines, on the other hand, don't understand meaning. Humans do, because only conscious beings can understand. So, yes, consciousness is indeterminacy with meaning. Unlike machines, we are indeterministic beings. Consciousness operates through physical systems, but exists beyond them. It is will and meaning, both fundamentally real, not derived from classical or quantum physics. And the freer a physical system is, and the more randomness it allows, the easier it becomes for consciousness to act through it. Brains, for example, with their immense complexity and possible quantum openness, might be excellent instruments for consciousness to express itself. Consciousness doesn't eliminate randomness, it organizes it into meaning. And just to be clear, I'm not saying that machines will never be conscious, because for all as we know, our bodies, our biology is a machine-like thing. We are biological machines. What I'm saying is that when a machine becomes conscious, then there's no really real difference between us and the machine. But at the same time, it'll be from my perspective, it'll be quite difficult or even impossible. I think it is fundamentally impossible for science to prove that a machine is conscious. At least not the type of science we have today. For that, we will need to evolve to some other type of science, a science that makes use of conscious instruments. Because to this day, science only uses un, unconscious instruments or like a traditional instruments, scientific instruments. Anyway, in summary, consciousness is about will and meaning. Will is the creative power of consciousness, the source of manifestation in reality in the physical world. Consciousness is that source, the force that impresses intention upon reality. Uh, because, as I described and mentioned in another video, first video in the cities that said that's titled "Science Cannot Tell You Everything." I make the point that pain is something that cannot be proven to exist because pain can only be felt by conscious beings. So that's very clear and kind of easy to demonstrate that consciousness exists in, in a magical way, so to speak, because we have no clue of how electrical signals in the brain create the qualia of pain. But that's very clear it exists. Nobody denies pain, everybody feels pain. So consciousness can receive information and experience that information. In the case of pain, in the form of pain, but it could be in the form of love, in the form of happiness or hate, any kind of feeling, conscious feeling, any kind of qualia, color. The red color is something that it's undeniable, like a undeniable. If everybody has an idea of what it means to see the red color, even if nobody has any clue of how neuronal networks generate the experience of redness. But then the same is probably true, even if it's not as obvious, for action upon matter. Consciousness, just as it can process information in the form of an experience, it can receive an information, receive information and experience that information. It can probably also send back information into the physical world by acting on it from from consciousness space, not just from a programming deterministic space. But that's already a lot for one video. In the next ones, we'll begin exploring the difference between high and low consciousness. How do you like these ideas? Do you agree with them? Do they resonate with you? As an initiation to this philosophy, which is the high consciousness philosophy, you can check out my book, Spirituality, Spiritual Initiation for Rational People. And if you want to keep exploring these ideas, please like this video, subscribe, share it with your friends. We are a very young channel and your support means a lot. Let's improve the experience of life for everyone on this planet. See you next time.